We grew up here and trust us, we've heard every Utah rumor.
From multiple wives to soda drive-thrus, we're debunking the internet's wildest takes on Utah and the LDS religion.
Real talk and no filter.
This is First and Feral, Utah Unfiltered. Utah born, chaos sworn. No filters, no fluff, just real voices and wild stories from the Beehive State.
Okay, so we want to preference today's episode by saying, first off, we are only sharing our own personal experiences. We're not speaking for the church. We're not speaking for anyone else's experiences but our own. Before we dive into the myths and debunking some of the myths for the LDS culture, let's set up the definition of Mormon and the LDS church.
President Russell Nelson directed the church to be using its formal name, so they no longer refer to themselves as Mormon. He is saying that the nickname is offensive to God and that the members now prefer to be called Latter-day Saints or the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. So Jordyn and I are used to saying Mormon because that's what we grew up using the term. And I think that in Utah, if you refer to someone as Mormon, you understand what they're talking about because that's been kind of a slang word used for a really long time. But President Nelson recently made that change. So if you are an active member in the church, you are probably not using the word Mormon anymore.
Yes. Yeah. Right? And just a preference, again, we'll be using the word Mormon because that's what we're used to growing up. But in no way are we trying to be disrespectful.
Yeah.
So let's jump right into some of the myths that are out there. So myth number 1, do Mormons practice polygamy?
So the answer is no. Think that outside of Utah, there's a big misconception about what polygamy is and what church that actually refers to. So here in Utah, the LDS Church, Latter-day Saints, did originally start that way, right? Joseph Smith did practice polygamy.
I think they discontinued it in like the 1890s.
Yes. So they stopped practicing polygamy and a sector of the church broke off and continued practicing polygamy. And they are now called the FLDS.
LDS. Yeah.
And so
it's the same.
What?
It's kind of confusing, the FLDS and the LDS church.
Yes. So FLDS stands for Fundamental Latter-day Saints.
The fundamentalist group.
Yes. Okay. And they are still here in Utah, practice polygamy. And there's quite a few like groups or sections in Utah that still practice polygamy, and they're FLDS.
Which is interesting because they do live down, Jess is from southern Utah, and a lot of them practice down in southern Utah. So Jessica's familiar with them, and we see them around town down there often. So
and they wear specific clothing. So that's why Jordyn is saying that I see them around town. I actually have a few that live across the street from me. They wear long dresses and they believe that, they wear long sleeves, a dress down to their ankles, and there's reasons for that.
Yeah. And to make note, it's very much a different religion than the Mormon religion that Jess and I grew up in. So, and it's also interesting because often we get asked, do you have multiple husbands, or not multiple husbands, multiple wives, right? And that's where that plays in. A lot of people outside of Utah will say, oh, do your husband have multiple wives? Are you one of many wives? And that's where that kind of crosses the line with polygamy. We do not have multiple husbands in the LDS church or the Mormon religion. So.
Well, to be specific too, is polygamy is generally when there's one man taking on multiple wives. So there will never be a home that has multiple husbands, multiple wives. It's not a group situation. Yeah. It's one man takes on multiple wives. And
Yes.
so, yes, I've been asked when I've traveled outside of Utah, or I've been asked with, friends who are not from Utah. They've asked me, so are you multiple wives for Troy? Like, does your husband have multiple wives? And the answer is no. We didn't grow up with multiple moms. It's a totally different church.
Yes. Yeah. Again, pertaining to the FLDS, that's where they practice polygamy. Mormons do not. So
Yes.
Debunking myth number 1. So myth number 2, the no caffeine myth. That stems from the word of wisdom, right? And the word of wisdom is basically like when you describe it as like a health code for the church. It prohibits alcohol, tobacco, coffee, tea. I don't think that caffeine, I know caffeine itself isn't a rule. Hence why the soda culture is so big in Utah, right? That's why the swigs are popping up and they're so popular right now, because caffeine isn't necessarily listed in the word of wisdom.
When the word of wisdom was created, this is my own personal opinion on it, is when the word of wisdom was created as part as the health code for LDS people, tea, coffee, those things, it is somewhat of a caffeine thing, right? A hot drink is basically what they say to stay away from. I think when they created this with Joseph Smith, there wasn't Pepsi or Coke or those things. And so they're telling you to stay do things within reason, right? And so tea and coffee were included in that. Now that we have all these other sodas that aren't great for ourselves, I do think that the word of wisdom probably encompasses some of that, but
because it's not specifically listed.
Yeah, but the Mormon
kind of gray area.
Yeah, it's a gray area for sure. And so I think the LDS people, they're following what is their doctrine, right? And that's coffee and tea and alcohol too. They stay away from alcohol. I do think that soda is a huge craze here in Utah because they're not able to use coffee in the morning. They start with a Diet Coke in the morning. Yep. And so you see if we're going to look at the Mormon wives, this, as we're talking through our podcast, they are showing their drink mixes. They're huge at swig. You'll see their favorite sodas that they mix with different creamers and flavors.
If you're outside of Utah, you may not know what swig is. Swig is like a drive-through soda shop. So you can drive through. They have all different types of sodas and mixtures that you can put into your soda. It's a drive-through soda shop. That's the best way to describe it.
Yeah. So what she's talking about mixtures is fruit or syrup flavorings, as well as creams. They got it all to mix your favorite drink.
Yeah. So it is interesting because in Utah, we're just so used to it. There's a swig on every corner. Outside of Utah, that seems odd, I think, to people. I don't know. Let us know if you think that's odd. All right. So myth number 3, garments, are they magical underwear?
Magical? They do hold a special purpose in the LDS people believe that they protect them. It's a type of protection. So,
and they are sacred. I think they symbolize. So I've actually never wore garments. And I know, Jess, you have in the past, so you probably know more about this than I do, but they are a sacred commitment, right? Considered a sacred commitment.
Yeah. So it's a commitment and a relation and your personal relationship with God. So it's a sacred covenant made and a protection against temptation. So they are white.
What they symbolize is a protection.
Yes. And so they are white. And so that can signify purity and joy. They also are a temple garment. So it's a physical reminder on someone's body of the commitment you made to follow Jesus Christ.
Okay. I feel like modesty also plays into that as well, right?
Yes. You can't actually show your garments, right? So they recently just changed the garment. So it used to be like a cap sleeve when I wore them. It was a cap sleeve. And they recently changed it to just straight down. So now women are able to wear a tank top. They're slightly lower so that you can wear a V-neck. And then the bottoms go just above the knee. So you aren't wearing like short shorts or, revealing clothing. It's a type of modesty as well. Yeah.
I think people outside of the church, though, are very interested in it because it's a type of underwear, I guess you could say. And so they're like, wait, what? You're wearing like mystical, magical, like underwear? That's what we hear all the time. So
yeah, no, it is your underwear because you don't wear underwear over top, like your bottom underwear. You're not going to wear like underwear over top of your garment bottom. But then also the top is against your skin. You wear your bra over top of it. So it is against your skin for protection and a reminder. And then it's your underwear. Yes.
And we want to be respectful to, the people in the church. It is a very sacred thing to them. And so a lot of them, like if you were to just approach them and ask them about it, would probably be reserved because it is a sacred thing inside the church.
Well, and also too, like you don't ask someone like, well, what color of underwear are you? Right?
Yeah.
And what type of underwear do you like? Like it's also, that is their underwear. So they don't talk about it because they're given to you inside the temple. It's a very sacred ceremony.
Yeah. So we want to be respectful and not dive into too many details about it, but they are, I would say the best way to describe them are just sacred clothing, sacred religious clothing. Okay, so myth number 4, temples are secret or exclusive clubs.
Secret, I think, is the wrong word.
Yeah.
Sacred, yes. You have to have a temple recommend to be going inside. So you have to be worthy, which means you're attending church, you're keeping the word of wisdom, you're paying your tithing, you're living to your best self in what is required for the church, right?
Which you mentioned, and not to like jump off text, but you mentioned tithing. So we talked about the word of wisdom, so people kind of understand that's like a health code for the church. But tithing, maybe talk to our listeners about what tithing is.
So tithing is you agreeing that you will give 10% of your earnings to the church. And so every paycheck that you receive, you cut 10%, give it over to the church. You pay it once a month to them.
So tithing is similar to like the Catholic term for stewardship. So it's a monetary collection. And in the LDS church, it's not a requirement, but it's suggested that you give, what'd you say, 10%?
Well, yeah. And it is required for you to be able to go into the temple. Like if you go to your bishop and say, hey, I'm wanting a temple recommend, I would like to perform services in the temple. He will say, are you paying your tithing? And so you give 10% donation.
And also going back to the temple thing. So you do have to meet those requirements to be able to go inside the temple, but they often will hold like pre-dedication, like when they're dedicating a new temple that's been built, they'll hold ceremonies where you actually can go and walk through the temple and see not all of the rooms, but most of the rooms. And they'll also explain to you what goes on inside the temple as far as the different ceremonies and the different types of rooms and the different things that go on inside the temple. So if you are interested in that, you could go to like a pre-dedication.
Yeah. So it's before they dedicate the temple, members and non-members are able to go and walk through the temple. They do a tour. And then once the temple is dedicated to the church, then you do not go inside unless you have a recommend. A temple recommend is a member receives as a way to perform services in the temple. So you may go to your bishop who is in your ward, which if you know what a ward is, it's a community of people surrounded near you that attend the same church. And there's a man called the bishop who's in charge of that ward. You go to him and he will interview you to make sure you're upholding your word of wisdom, you're upholding your temple worthiness? Are you, being honest? Are you paying your tithing? Those kind of things to be able to go inside the temple.
Myth number 5 is that everybody in Utah has a huge family with a lot of kids.
Yes. And I think that's true. If you look at Utah's population, that's probably true. But I would guess with our generation and maybe the generation under us, that's probably starting to dwindle a little bit. The church encourages you to procreate, procreation and having big families.
Yeah. And it isn't uncommon to meet someone in Utah with 10 children. It's really not.
Or 5, right? At least 5.
Yeah. I mean, I work with someone that has 10 children. So it's not uncommon. We do have larger families here, I think, than normal. And I do think that does stem from the LDS church being so dominant here. But not everybody. Like, I don't have 10 children. I have 3.
And I have one. So there are lots of smaller families too.
Yeah. And I do think that is, we know that that's changing as a society in general, right? People aren't having as many children. So, and I don't know. I mean, we could go into a million reasons why that might be the case. I think there's a lot of things that play into it. But I do think that the larger families in Utah are more dominant because of the church being so centered on the family unit. Oh, do members call non-members Gentiles?
If you're talking to an LDS member, they're not going to say, because I'm inactive, I'm a Gentile. But if you're talking to someone who is in the FLDS church, they are taught a non-member is a Gentile. So I think that's where that verbiage comes from.
I was going to say, though, isn't that it's a biblical term, too? It's in the Book of Mormon. And a lot of those stories, the old Book of Mormon stories, reference Gentiles.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's where that comes from. But it's not like a common term that people in the LDS church are using on a daily basis. Absolutely not. No. The next myth is, are missionaries forced to go on a mission? Let's first define what a mission is. So a mission is where a young woman or a young man can go and serve the church and teach about the church, teach others about the church, and convert them.
Missionaries can go out when they feel comfortable, but for most missionaries, they will go as a single adult. And so they can go as early as 18 or 19 for women. And if you're older, if your kids are out of the house and you're retired and want to serve a mission, you also can as a couple eventually when you're older.
Yeah, and but so it's not a forced thing. It's a choice for sure.
I mean, I think that if you were to ask my husband about serving a mission, I think that when he was growing up, there was pressure behind serving. I think that if you're growing up within the church, it's kind of like sometimes looked as a requirement, depending on how active your family is. But then I think the door is opening too on parents being a little bit more open-minded on saying, hey, does this feel right for you? I would love you to. They encourage their child, but they're also not saying you have to do this.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that Troy did feel a little bit of pressure because so my husband grew up in a very religious family and they are still very religious. He had an older brother that served a mission and then another older brother that served a partial mission, but he didn't ever feel pressure. And I don't know if that had anything to do with, I think it's more his personality. Like if he doesn't want to do something, he's not going to do it. But he didn't feel pressure to go and he didn't serve a mission either, but he also had brothers that did. So their experiences might be different as well. But I think in some instances, there definitely is a stigma around like, once you're of age, are you going to serve a mission? Like there's that lingering question, right? Similar to like us being raised Mormon, the requirement to get married in the temple, right? There was pressure around that. Todd and I chose not to get married in the temple, and I felt like there was disappointment from specific members of my family that I wasn't married in the temple. So there are so many beautiful things about the church. And like any other religion, there's also some things that aren't perfect, right? And there's pressures and things that you feel that aren't necessarily like doctrine in the church, but it's just there.
Yeah. And my personal experience is I did get married in the temple, and I got married very young, which is common for Utah, that we're getting married young. I got married at the age of 20. And I think that it's not necessarily pressure from my family that I was going through the temple, but my husband his family is not active. And so I think there was pressure behind like showing my family that he's a good guy, meaning he can take me through the temple. He's worthy enough to do that. And so I felt like him and I fought to go through the temple because of outside appearance. And we don't regret going through the temple. We were worthy to go through the temple. We worked very hard to be able to do that. We got engaged and we did not get married for a year and a half because of the work we had to do to become worthy. And him and I don't regret it. But I think that if I was to look at the whole picture now that I'm not active, I don't know if I would have made that choice if I wouldn't have felt some sort of pressure around creating that outside appearance
like,
that he was good for me.
Correct. Yeah. And just so you know, those of you that aren't watching and you're just listening on audio, she's doing quotation marks around good guy. He's an absolutely fabulous guy, regardless of whether he went through the temple or not. That's why she's throwing those up. But
yes, and he is. I mean, we've been married 21 years. Him and I are best friends, but I think there was just that stigma of I need to show everyone that he's perfect for me, right? And it's because of the community that we grew up in. Everybody is LDS. Everybody's getting married in the temple. And so if you don't get married in the temple, you're almost looked at like, well, what did you do wrong?
Yep. Yeah. So another question that came in is, are you cut off if you leave the church? And I think I know where this stems from. I'm going to let you answer, but I think I know where this stems from.
The answer is there's a gray area. I'm going to answer there's a gray area because I think it depends on your family. I don't think it's a church saying like, don't talk to your children or don't talk to your friend if they're not LDS. That is not what the church is saying at all. But I do think there's Mormon members who are more strict. And so they may feel disappointment or feel sad that you're no longer a member. And so that may jeopardize your relationship and may put a strain on it. So it's not necessarily that you're cast out, but you may feel as though you're disappointing that person. And that's where that stress and strain may jeopardize the relationship.
I also think though, so again, differentiating between the FLDS church and the LDS church. In the FLDS church, if you leave the FLDS church, you are essentially cut off. That's what they teach, correct? Yeah. So that is where people are mixing the FLDS church with the LDS church. I think that's where that confusion lies as well. So in the LDS church, no, but there, like Jessica said, it can strain a relationship or, you know, there may be some differences there, but you're not cut off per se, where in an FLDS church situation, you would be.
Yeah. But in Jordyn and I's case, both of our parents are supportive of us. Our dad is not an active member, but our mom is. Her and her spouse are very active, and our grandparents are very active. And we haven't had relationships go south because Jordyn and I aren't attending church. I feel like our mom is very open-minded to understanding that what makes us happy is what matters. She would rather have a relationship with us than like say, because you're not going to church, I'm not talking to you, or I don't want a relationship with my grandchildren. That would never happen.
Yeah. And I have in-laws that are, you know, very much into the church, and they are the same in the fact that they just love us for who we are and support whatever decisions we decide to make. Right. So,
yep.
Yeah. Okay. So the next question is, do Mormons eat Jell-O with everything?
Okay. So the answer is no. It's so funny. Jordyn and I are laughing about this question because no, we don't eat Jell-O. Or I guess I should say
Jell-O.
the LDS members don't eat Jell-O for morning, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Jell-O is a common dish that someone will bring to a church activity, or they may bring it to a funeral. Green Jell-O specifically is what people think LDS church people eat.
Do you know what Jell-O is made out of? I can't eat it since I figured out what it's made out of.
Oh, no. Yeah.
So if you're listening and you still want to eat Jell-O, turn it off.
Tune out.
It for a minute. It is made out of horses' hoofs.
The gelatin?
I think so. Let me just verify that.
Oh, wow. Also, why it would be brought to like a church gathering or funeral is because it's inexpensive and it's a practical choice to be able to feed a large family or a large group of people.
Casserole. Yeah.
That's why I think it gets brought to a lot of church gatherings, but also it has a long shelf life. So people put it in their food storage. So it's kind of been stereotyped as Mormon food.
Because Mormons are very much into food storage as well, like being prepared. Yes.
That
makes sense.
I think it's a cultural thing that linked to, the Latter-day Saint population, but it's not necessarily something we're eating at every meal. Like, I don't even know the last time I made Jell-O. But what is funny is we will show up for Christmas and Mom has the Jell-O.
The raspberry Jell-O.
Yes, the raspberry Jell-O specifically because we know that she makes it every year is tradition.
Yeah. And I do eat that. I will say I do eat that. So yes. I can't say that I don't eat Jell-O. And I just looked up too. So it is a common misconception that it's made out of horse hoofs. So gelatin is a collagen and it's found in animals' connective tissues like skin, bones, and tendons. And it's most often sourced from cows and pigs, not horses. Still not great. Doesn't make you, like, next time you take a bite of Jell-O and you think about that, doesn't make you want to eat it. But yeah, horses' hoofs have keratin, not collagen. So that's why there's that misconception there. That's a funny one though.
That is funny.
The other question that came in is what's with the fry sauce in Utah, which this doesn't necessarily pertain to like the LDS culture. I think it's more of like a Utah thing. I love fry sauce. So if you've never tried fry sauce, let's explain what it is.
Okay. So fry sauce is mixing ketchup and mayo and you mix it and that's what you eat with your fries instead of just ketchup. But some people dress it up and they'll even put like pickle juice in it, or they'll put Thousand Island dressing in it. Or my favorite is when they do barbecue sauce and mayo. So good. Kind of like Red Robin. Campfire sauce.
Red Robin has a really good one. So Red Robin, most of you should know what food chain that is. And then Crown Burger has a really good one, which I don't know if Crown Burger is specific to Utah, but they have a really good fry sauce. So
yes. And so if you go to any like fast food or any place that's serving burgers and fries in Utah, 9 times out of 10, they're going to have fry sauce for you. So, but you have to ask for it specifically, just like you would other condiments.
And I'm always so disappointed when you go like outside of Utah and there's no fry sauce options. Why? They need fry sauce. I don't know why it's not catching on in other places.
I don't know.
So don't knock it till you try it. It sounds so simple. Like when you're like, it's just mayo and ketchup. Or mayo and ketchup. I don't know why it's so good. I could drink it. So good. Another myth is that you can't buy alcohol on Sundays. And this is kind of like a 2-part question. So that is false. You can actually buy alcohol on Sundays. At bars and restaurants, but state liquor stores are closed on Sundays, but private establishments can still serve. So Sundays for the LDS community are days to go to church, right? They're sacred days and you only worship on those days. You don't work on those days. You don't play
it's considered like the Sabbath. You keep the Sabbath day holy. And so you won't spend money. You don't go to like stores. Even when we were kids, we couldn't play with the kids next door. Like it was a family day.
Yes. Yeah. And it's interesting too, still a lot of businesses here in Utah are closed on Sundays. So if, you travel here and you're trying to find, I think it's a little more common for them to be open now, but there are still some huge businesses that do not open their doors on Sundays.
Oh, and where I live in Southern Utah, there is like hardly anything open.
Yeah, that's true.
We have like nothing's open.
And you guys shut down early too. Doesn't I feel like St. George shuts down so early, like at like 9 o'clock.
Yeah. So we have one bar and like club here that is just brand new, a couple years old. But typically during the week and stuff, businesses are closed by 9 p.m., 10 p.m. at the latest.
It's so interesting to think about. So funny. There's another myth that people are stating that you can't get good coffee here in Utah.
There's a lot of good coffee shops in Salt Lake. I feel like Salt Lake is very mixed on having a lot of LDS culture, but then also a lot who are not LDS. And so downtown Salt Lake is busy. I feel like there's a lot of local breweries.
Yep,
and
that are really good
coffee.
Yep, I agree.
What's the weather? Is it mountains or desert? Make up your mind.
Oh, it's both. That's a fun one. And that's one of the things I love about Utah is you get both. So where Jessica lives is more desert, Red Rock, so beautiful. And then where I live is I've got big, beautiful mountains in the back of my house. We are 20 minutes away from a ski resort. So you get both and it's so beautiful. And
so to answer that question, I feel like it depends on who you're asking, right? Is Utah known for their mountains or Red Rock or desert? If you ask me, I live in the desert and I absolutely love it. So I would probably say to me, home is desert, Red Rock, cactuses, desert. But if you ask Jordyn, it's pine trees and huge mountains and snow. Yeah, so we kind of have it all because I can drive an hour north and hit snow. I can ski at Bryan Head, but come back home and be boating the next day in warm weather. So just depends on who you're asking. It says make up your mind. I don't know if we can because we have so much to offer here in Utah. It's beautiful.
It's so beautiful. Yeah, I love it. And that's one of the things I love about the seasons, right? I guess in Southern Utah, there's not as many seasons. In Northern Utah, we get summer, spring, winter, like all the seasons. Right now it's fall and it's so beautiful because the leaves are changing. We have snow-capped mountains. It's so, so beautiful. And actually, I think when people visit Utah, that's what they fall in love with is it's so beautiful.
Yeah, because if you go to Salt Lake and you go up to Park City, it's absolutely stunning with like huge mountains, beautiful weather. You'll have like in the fall, the leaves are changing. It's gorgeous. And then the summer, it's like a cooler weather, but beautifully and green. But if you come to Southern Utah, it's Red Rock, hot, heat, and just like beautiful lakes. And
it is crazy that that's only like a 4 or 5 hour distance away from each other. The two stark differences are really so close to each other. So it is kind of crazy.
Yeah. Honestly, like traveling outside of Utah, I wouldn't change it for the world that I grew up here. Yes, the LDS culture is very strong and like people don't understand it, but this state is so beautiful. It has so much to offer. If you haven't visited here, you should.
Well, and even going back to like the church, there's so many beautiful things in the church that people are so loving and so kind. There's so much volunteer work that goes on within the church. People do show up for each other here. I think we're a very kind, giving state.
Definitely.
So. And that's not to say, that there's not perfectionism and pressure, right? And like you said, doctrine, confusion, and all of these different things. I think that is within any religion and any culture, you're going to have, some of the downsides as well. But yeah, all together, we love Utah. So if you haven't been here and you have more questions about Utah, drop them in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you, and we can set up maybe a second episode answering some of your guys' questions as well. So. Joanna Fisher's story is one of courage. Next week, we'll talk about her life after leaving the FLDS, the myths that still surround it, and the women finding their voices.
Make sure to hit follow so you don't miss it.
Thanks for listening to First and Feral, Utah Unfiltered. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay a little feral.